The afternoon had no plans. It was one of those slow days, where time feels wide and gentle, where nothing demands attention. Sunlight rested softly on the small front porch, turning the wooden steps a warm shade of gold. Dust drifted lazily through the air, visible only when the light caught it just right. Daniel sat in an old chair near the door, a mug of tea warming his hands. The steam curled upward, then vanished. He wasn't thinking about anything important. Just breathing. Just being still. A breeze moved through the yard, rustling the leaves of the maple tree near the fence. Somewhere far off, a lawnmower hummed. Closer by, birds exchanged quiet conversations. It was ordinary. Comfortably ordinary. Daniel leaned back, letting the chair creak beneath his weight. 32 years old. Modern life behind him for a moment. Emails unanswered. Phone face down on the table. Peace. Then, something shifted. Not a sound. Not movement. Just a feeling. Daniel's eyes drifted toward the yard without knowing why. Toward the edge where the grass met the dirt road. That's when he saw the dog. It stood still, as if it had always been there. Small. Young. Golden brown fur dusted with gray near its paws. The light touched the pup gently, outlining its shape, catching in the soft curve of its ears. It didn't bark. Didn't wag. Didn't run. It just looked at him. Daniel frowned slightly. Not in fear, but curiosity. Hey there, he said quietly. The pup didn't move. Its eyes were calm. Dark. Focused. Not hungry-looking. Not scared. Present. Daniel set the mug down slowly. He stood, careful not to startle it. The boards of the porch creaked again, loud in the silence. Still. The pup stayed. It took a single step forward, then another. Each movement deliberate, measured. Finally, it stopped, and sat, tail resting gently on the ground. Back straight, head lifted, waiting. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. Not worry. Not excitement. Recognition. Like this moment mattered. Even if he didn't yet know why. He walked halfway down the steps, keeping distance. You lost? He asked softly. The dog tilted its head. The motion was small, almost thoughtful. Sunlight slipped across its neck. And that's when Daniel saw it. A collar. Old. Worn. Faded blue. And tied to it, a piece of paper. Folded carefully. Secured with thin twine. Daniel's breath slowed. What's that? He murmured. The dog didn't look down. Didn't fidget. It watched his face, as if reading it. Daniel crouched, resting one hand on the step. The yard felt suddenly very quiet. Even the birds had paused. Easy, he said. It's okay. The pup leaned forward just slightly. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to invite. Daniel reached out. His fingers brushed warm fur. Soft. Real. The pup didn't pull away. That simple trust sent a ripple through him. A memory stirred. Of childhood summers. Of dogs that once slept at his feet. Of comfort without words. He swallowed. Carefully. He untied the twine. The paper slid free. For a moment, He didn't open it. He looked at the pup instead. "You brought this here," he whispered. The dog blinked once. Slow. Intentional. As if that was answer enough. Daniel unfolded the note. The paper was creased. Handled many times. The writing wasn't long. Just a few lines. His eyes moved across the words. Then stopped. His throat tightened. The warmth of the afternoon shifted. Not colder. Just deeper. The dog watched him closely now. Ears angled forward. Body still. Daniel felt his hands tremble slightly. He read the note again. Slower. The meaning pressed gently against his chest. Not heavy. But undeniable. "You're serious," he breathed. He looked up. The pup met his gaze. There was no fear there. No uncertainty. Only patience. Daniel exhaled. Long and slow. The world resumed its quiet rhythm. Leaves moved again. A bird chirped. But something had changed. He folded the note carefully. And slipped it into his pocket. "Well," he said softly. A faint smile touching his lips. "I guess you found the right porch." The dog's tail moved. Just once. A small, restrained wag. Not excitement. Relief. Daniel reached out again. This time with more confidence. The pup leaned into his hand. Warmth spread through his palm. Through his arm. Into his chest. Whatever this was. It wasn't random. And whatever message this dog carried. Whatever reason had guided its steps here. Daniel knew one thing for certain. This quiet arrival was only the beginning. What the dog sensed would change everything. The dog didn't follow Daniel inside. That was the first thing that stayed with him. Most dogs, especially strays, rush forward the moment a door opens. They cling to warmth, to shelter, to food. This one didn't. It remained on the porch, sitting where it had settled earlier. Back straight. Tail resting calmly against the wood. Waiting. Daniel paused in the doorway. Hand still on the knob. "You can come in," he said gently. His voice was low, steady. The way people speak when they don't want to break something fragile. The dog looked past him. Into the dim hallway beyond the door. It studied the space carefully. Then it looked back at Daniel. And stayed where it was. Daniel felt a soft exhale leave his chest. Not disappointment. Understanding. "Okay," he murmured. "That's fine." He stepped back out and closed the door behind him, choosing the porch instead. The wood was warm beneath him as he sat down. Close enough to feel the dog's presence. Without crowding it. The afternoon light had shifted slightly. Still golden. But deeper now. More intimate. They sat together like that. No rush. No noise. Just breathing. Daniel noticed small details. The dog's ears moved with distant sounds. A passing car. A bird lifting from a tree. But its eyes always returned to him. Not anxiously. Attentively. Daniel rested his elbows on his knees. "You're not in a hurry," he said softly. The dog blinked. Slow. Deliberate. That calm patience stirred something inside him. It reminded him of moments long gone. Of sitting quietly beside his father as a child. Of learning that not every connection needed words. Daniel reached out again, running his hand gently along the dog's back. The fur was warm. Clean enough to suggest care. But worn enough to tell a story. "You didn't just wander here," he whispered. The dog's head tilted slightly. Daniel smiled faintly. Did you? The wind picked up, lifting the edge of the note tied to the collar. The paper brushed softly against the dog's chest. Daniel's eyes followed it. The note! He could feel it even now. The weight of it in his pocket. The quiet power of words not yet understood. You know what that says, he said quietly. The dog didn't look away. That was what unsettled him most. Not in a bad way, but in a way that felt intentional. Daniel shifted his position, sitting cross-legged now. I don't even know your name. The dog leaned forward slightly, closing the space between them. Daniel laughed under his breath. A small sound. Fair enough. Time stretched. The neighborhood carried on. A door closing somewhere. Distant laughter. A car engine fading away. But the porch felt like its own world. Eventually, Daniel stood. His legs protested softly. I'm going to get you some water, he said. I'll be right back. He hesitated, watching for a reaction. The dog didn't panic. Didn't follow. Didn't whine. It simply stayed. Waiting. That trust hit Daniel harder than anything else. Inside, he filled a bowl. His movements slower than usual. Thoughtful. When he returned, the dog lifted its head. Alert, but calm. Daniel placed the bowl on the porch and stepped back. The dog approached, drank quietly, then stepped away when it was done. No mess. No urgency. It sat again. Waiting. Daniel shook his head slightly. You're different, he murmured. The sun dipped lower now, casting long shadows across the yard. The air cooled just enough to notice. Daniel glanced at the road, then back at the dog. You don't seem lost, he said. The dog's gaze followed his. To the road. Then returned. Daniel felt it then. This dog wasn't searching for a place. It had already found one. Not the house. Him. That realization settled quietly. Without drama. Daniel sat again. Closer this time. The dog leaned against his leg. Just enough to make contact. Warm. Steady. Daniel rested his hand on its shoulder. You knew I'd be here, he whispered. Not fully believing the words, but not rejecting them either. The dog's breathing slowed. Evening crept in. Soft and patient. The porch light flicked on automatically, casting a warm circle around them. Daniel didn't move. Neither did the dog. Somewhere deep inside, Daniel felt a door open. Not to the house, but to something older. Quieter. Trust. Whatever had brought this dog here wasn't finished yet, and the dog knew it. So it stayed. And waited. The house felt different once the door closed. Not louder. Not quieter. Just aware. Daniel noticed at the moment he stepped inside. As if the walls themselves were listening now. As if something had been added to the space. Not physically, but emotionally. He set a folded blanket near the door, placing it carefully on the floor. The dog stepped in slowly. Not rushing. Not hesitant. It circled the blanket once, then lay down with practiced ease, curling its body neatly, tail tucked close. Still watching him, Daniel exhaled, not realizing he'd been holding his breath. All right, he said softly. Make yourself comfortable. The dog rested its chin on its paws, eyes following him as he moved toward the kitchen. The late afternoon light filtered through the windows, painting warm rectangles on the floor. Dust floated lazily in the air. Daniel poured himself a glass of water, then leaned against the counter. That's when his hand brushed his pocket. The note! He froze. Slowly, he pulled it out. The paper was thin, creased, soft from being handled again and again. He unfolded it carefully, as if it might tear under the weight of attention. The handwriting was simple, neat, unhurried. Daniel read it once, then again. The words didn't change, but the way they landed did. If you're reading this, thank you for stopping. This dog knows where to go. Please trust him, like I did. Daniel swallowed. That's it, he whispered. No name. No date. No explanation. Just trust. He let out a slow breath and leaned back in the chair, eyes drifting toward the dog. The dog hadn't moved. Its gaze met his. Steady. Intent. Almost familiar. You trust him, Daniel said aloud, testing the words. The dog's ears lifted slightly. Daniel felt a chill, not cold, but clarity. This isn't random, he murmured. The house creaked softly as it settled. A familiar sound suddenly louder than before. Daniel rubbed his thumb over the edge of the paper. Whoever had written this, they believed in something. In someone. In the dog. He stood and walked closer, sitting on the floor a few feet away. You were trusted with this, he said quietly. With a message. The dog blinked once. Daniel shook his head. A faint, disbelieving smile touching his lips. You don't even know me. The dog shifted, adjusting its position slightly. But it didn't look away. Daniel felt the question forming before he could stop it. Why me? The room offered no answer. But the dog did something unexpected. It stood, walked over, and gently rested its head against Daniel's knee. No demand. No urgency. Just contact. Daniel closed his eyes. A memory stirred. Of being younger. Of sitting in silence with someone who understood him. Without asking questions. He rested his hand on the dog's head, fingers sinking into soft fur. You're carrying more than a note, he whispered. The dog stayed still. That night came quietly. Daniel prepared a simple dinner. The dog watching from its place near the doorway. No begging. No pacing. When Daniel finally sat down, he placed a small bowl of food beside the blanket. The dog ate slowly, politely. Afterward, it returned to the blanket and curled up again, waiting. Daniel watched from the couch. The note folded once more in his hand. The house dimmed as evening settled in. Streetlights flickered on outside, casting faint glows through the windows. Daniel tried to distract himself. Turned on the television, then turned it off again. Too loud. He glanced at the dog. You don't seem worried at all, he said softly. The dog's breathing was steady now. Peaceful. As if it had completed something important. Daniel lay back, staring at the ceiling. Sleep came slowly. Not because of fear, but because his mind wouldn't settle. Questions surfaced and faded. Who wrote the note? Why now? How did the dog know where to go? But beneath all of that, something steadier remained. Purpose. Sometime in the night, Daniel woke briefly. The house was dark. The dog hadn't moved. Still there. Still breathing softly. Daniel turned on his side, a strange comfort warming his chest. Morning light eventually crept in, pale and gentle. Daniel opened his eyes. For a moment, he forgot. Then he saw the dog. And remembered everything. The note. The waiting. The trust. Daniel sat up slowly. "This isn't over," he whispered. The dog lifted its head. Eyes clear. Alert. Ready. Daniel folded the note carefully and slipped it into his pocket again. Whatever it meant. Whatever came next. The message wasn't finished yet. And somehow, the dog knew exactly when the next step would begin. Morning arrived without urgency. Light slipped through the curtains in thin, quiet lines, resting gently on the walls, the floor, the still shape near the door. Daniel woke slowly. Not startled. Not rushed. Just aware. He lay there for a moment, listening. The house breathed the way it always had. Soft creaks. A distant car passing. The faint hum of the refrigerator. Then he remembered. The dog. Daniel turned his head. The pup was still curled on the blanket. Exactly where it had been the night before. Its chest rose and fell in an even rhythm. Peaceful. Daniel felt something loosen inside him. A smile touched his face. Small and unguarded. "Morning," he whispered. The dog's ears twitched. One eye opened. Then the other. Its tail moved slightly against the blanket. Not fast. Not excited. Just present. Daniel sat up and swung his feet onto the floor. Moving slowly. Not wanting to break the calm. The dog stood and stretched. Front paws extended. Back arching gently. Then it looked at him. Waiting. Daniel laughed softly under his breath. "Yeah," he said. "I'm up." They moved through the morning together. Daniel made coffee. The dog sat nearby, watching. Head tilting now and then. At the unfamiliar sounds. No anxiety. No restlessness. Just curiosity. Daniel cracked an egg into a pan. The soft sizzle filling the kitchen. He set aside a small portion once it was done, and placed it in a bowl on the floor. The dog approached carefully, sniffed, then ate. Slowly, gratefully. When it finished, it stepped back and sat, waiting. Daniel leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely. "You're very polite," he said. The dog's tail moved once. That quiet, restrained wag again. After breakfast, Daniel opened the back door. Cool air drifted in. The dog paused at the threshold. Looked up at him. "It's okay," Daniel said gently. The dog stepped outside. The yard looked different in the morning light. Brighter. More open. They walked together without direction. No leash. No commands. Just presence. The dog didn't run. Didn't wander far. It stayed close. Sometimes ahead. Sometimes beside him. At one point, Daniel stopped near the old maple tree. The dog stopped too. Daniel noticed the timing. "You're paying attention," he murmured. The dog looked up at him. Something warm settled into Daniel's chest. Not excitement. Belonging. They sat in the grass for a while, the sun warming their backs. Daniel rested his hands on his knees, staring at nothing in particular. "You know," he said quietly, "I live alone." The dog shifted closer. Daniel continued, voice low, unpolished. "I didn't plan on company." The dog leaned gently against his leg. Contact. Simple. Steady. Daniel swallowed. I forgot what this feels like." The dog didn't move. It didn't need to. The day passed slowly. Daniel postponed errands, ignored his phone. Instead, he swept the porch, straightened things that didn't need fixing. The dog followed him from room to room. Never underfoot. Never distant. Always exactly where it should be. By afternoon, Daniel realized something surprising. He wasn't thinking about the note. Not because it didn't matter, but because something else did. Connection. Later, as sunlight slanted through the living room, Daniel sat on the couch. The dog approached hesitantly, paused, then climbed up beside him. It curled against his side, warm and solid. Daniel froze for a moment, then relaxed. He rested his arm lightly along the dog's back. "You're not supposed to be this easy," he whispered. The dog sighed. A deep, content sound. That did it. Something in Daniel's chest broke open. Not painfully, but honestly. He leaned his head back, eyes closing. For the first time in a long while, he felt accompanied. Not distracted. Not entertained. Seen. As evening approached, Daniel found himself talking more. Not loudly. Not constantly. Just small thoughts spoken into the air. The dog listened. Always. When the sun dipped low, painting the room in golden shadow, Daniel reached for the collar. He traced its worn edge with his fingers. "You had someone," he said softly. The dog's ears lifted. "And you lost them." The dog didn't pull away. Daniel nodded slowly. "Me too," he added, barely audible. They stayed like that as night arrived. No answers. No plans. Just a shared quiet. Daniel looked down at the dog and smiled. "Whatever this is," he said, "I think it matters." The dog rested its head against his chest. Heartbeat to heartbeat. And in that simple, unexpected closeness, a bond formed. Not forced. Not promised. But real. The thought didn't arrive all at once. It formed slowly, like morning fog lifting from the ground. Daniel noticed it while tying his shoes. The dog sitting nearby, watching every movement with quiet focus. "You keep looking at the road," Daniel said softly. The dog's ears shifted. Daniel paused, fingers resting on the laces. "Do you want me to take you somewhere?" The words hung in the air. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dog stood. It walked to the door. Stopped. Looked back at him. Daniel's heart slowed. Not from fear. From recognition. "Okay," he said quietly. They stepped outside together. The late afternoon sun rested low, casting long shadows across the street. The air smelled faintly of warm pavement and distant trees. Daniel didn't bring a leash. Something told him he wouldn't need one. The dog moved ahead. Not pulling. Not rushing. Just guiding. Daniel followed. Each step felt deliberate, as if he were agreeing to something unspoken. They passed familiar houses. Porches. Fences. Neighbors waved. Daniel nodded back. But his attention stayed on the dog. It stopped at corners. Waited for him. Then continued. "You know exactly where you're going," Daniel murmured. The dog didn't respond, but its tail lifted slightly. They walked until the street narrowed, until the sounds of the neighborhood softened. Ahead, a small park opened up. Grass. A single path. And a large tree near the center. The dog slowed. Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Here?" he asked. The dog walked forward. Straight to the tree. At its base sat a wooden bench, weathered by time and sun. The dog stopped beside it and sat, waiting. Daniel stood there, uncertain. Something about the place felt heavy. Not sad, just full. He lowered himself onto the bench. The wood creaked beneath his weight. The dog moved closer and rested its head against Daniel's knee. Contact. Daniel stared ahead. Memories stirred. Not his own, but close enough to feel. People waiting here, day after day, hoping. You came here before, Daniel whispered. The dog didn't move. The breeze passed through the tree above them, leaves whispering softly. Daniel closed his eyes. You were supposed to bring someone, he said slowly. The dog leaned in closer. That gentle pressure said everything. They sat like that for a long time. No explanations. No voices. Just understanding forming quietly. Eventually, footsteps approached. An older woman walked along the path, slowing when she saw them. She stopped. Is that the dog? She asked softly. Daniel looked up. Maybe. She smiled sadly. I used to see him here every afternoon. Daniel's breath caught. With an old man, she continued. They'd sit right there. She gestured to the bench. He stopped coming, she said. But the dog kept waiting. Daniel looked down at the dog. The dog's eyes stayed on the horizon. He waited a long time, the woman added. Then one day, he left. Daniel swallowed. And the note? He asked quietly. The woman nodded. The old man trusted him. She walked on. Silence returned. Daniel reached into his pocket and felt the folded paper. Everything connected now. The waiting. The trust. The guidance. You were carrying more than a message. Daniel whispered. The dog finally looked at him. Eyes soft. Grateful. The sun dipped lower. Daniel stood slowly. Come on, he said gently. The dog followed. This time, side by side. They didn't leave the park right away. Daniel stood beside the bench for a moment, hands in his pockets, as if moving too quickly might break something. The dog stayed close, no longer leading, no longer waiting, just there. The tree above them filtered the late light, scattering it into soft patterns on the ground. Shadows shifted slowly, marking time without urgency. Daniel sat back down. This time, the dog climbed onto the bench beside him. Careful. Respectful. Their shoulders touched. That simple contact pressed something loose in Daniel's chest. He exhaled slowly. So this is where you waited, he whispered. The dog's ears angled forward, catching distant sounds. But its body stayed relaxed. Daniel rested his forearms on his thighs, staring at the worn path ahead. I keep thinking about the man who wrote that note, he said quietly. The dog's tail moved once. Daniel nodded. He knew, Daniel continued. Knew he wouldn't be coming back. The words felt heavy, but not sharp. More like acceptance. Daniel reached out and traced the edge of the bench with his fingers. The wood was smooth in places, rough in others, shaped by years of waiting. He didn't want you to be alone, Daniel said. The dog leaned closer. Daniel swallowed. He trusted you with his goodbye. The breeze stirred again, lifting the dog's fur gently. Daniel closed his eyes. A memory rose unexpectedly. His father's last voicemail. Saved but never replayed. The things people leave behind. Not objects, but trust. Daniel's throat tightened. He didn't wipe the tear when it came. He let it fall. The dog noticed. It shifted closer, pressing its side against his leg. Steady. Warm. Daniel laughed softly through his breath. "You're good at this," he whispered. They sat in silence for a long while. Long enough for the park to empty. Long enough for the sun to begin its descent. Daniel finally spoke again. "I think you were supposed to bring someone here," he said slowly. The dog looked at him. Directly. "And when he didn't come back, you kept waiting." Daniel nodded to himself. "That takes faith." The dog rested its head against Daniel's arm. Daniel felt it then. The shift. Not sadness turning into happiness, but loneliness turning into connection. "You didn't fail him," Daniel said. "You did exactly what he asked." The dog exhaled softly. Daniel straightened slightly. "I think he knew someone else would need you." The dog lifted its head. Daniel met its gaze. And maybe someone else would need to be needed. That realization settled gently. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out the note. He unfolded it again, reading the words one more time. "Please trust him, like I did." Daniel nodded. "Okay," he said quietly. "I will." He folded the note carefully and placed it back in his pocket. The dog shifted its weight, settling more comfortably against him. As the light softened into evening, Daniel felt something resolve inside him. Not everything. Not the past. Just this moment. Just this choice. Eventually, Daniel stood. The dog followed. They walked slowly toward the exit of the park. Neither in a hurry. At the edge, Daniel stopped and looked back. The bench sat empty beneath the tree, waiting for no one now. "That chapter's closed," Daniel murmured. The dog's tail moved gently. They turned toward home. But the walk felt different now. Lighter. As if the path ahead was no longer a question. Halfway down the street, Daniel spoke again. "You know," he said, "I don't think I was chosen by accident." The dog glanced up at him. Daniel smiled. "Yeah. Me neither." The sky darkened into soft blue. Streetlights flickered on. Daniel felt calm. Resolved. The turning point had passed quietly. Without drama. Without noise. Just understanding. And sometimes, that's how healing begins. The truth didn't arrive in a single moment. It revealed itself slowly. In pieces. In quiet confirmations. Daniel noticed it that evening as he set 2 bowls on the kitchen floor. One for himself. One for the dog. The routine felt natural already. Not new. Not forced. Earned. The dog watched him from its spot near the doorway. Eyes calm. Body relaxed. "You're not leaving again, are you?" Daniel asked softly. The dog's tail moved once. "No." After dinner, Daniel sat at the table, the note resting between his hands. The words seemed different now. Less mysterious. More intentional. The man who wrote them hadn't been asking for help. He'd been passing something on. Trust. Daniel leaned back and closed his eyes. He pictured the old man, sitting on that bench every afternoon, the dog beside him, waiting, not for the end, but for continuity, a way for love not to stop. The dog stood suddenly, walked to the door, stopped, looked back. Daniel's heart skipped. "You want to go again?" he asked. The dog waited. Daniel grabbed his jacket. The night air was cool. Clean. They walked the same route. Familiar now. At the park, the bench waited beneath the tree. Empty. A man stood nearby this time. Younger. Mid-40s. He noticed the dog and froze. I know him, the man said quietly. Daniel stopped. You do? The man nodded. My father. Daniel didn't speak. He passed a few weeks ago, the man continued. He talked about that dog all the time. The dog stepped forward. The man knelt. Tears filled his eyes. You waited, he whispered. The dog pressed its forehead gently against the man's chest. Daniel felt the truth settle completely. The note wasn't meant to shock. It was meant to guide. The man stood and wiped his face. He said the dog would find someone kind. Daniel swallowed. I think he did, the man said. They stood in silence. Then the man smiled softly. Keep him. Daniel nodded. That was all. They walked home under the stars. The dog closer now. Certain. Home didn't feel like a place anymore. It felt like a shared decision. Daniel knelt by the door and removed the old twine from the collar. Carefully. Respectfully. The past had been honored. Now it was time to move forward. The next morning, Daniel clipped a small metal tag onto the collar. It read, Hope. The dog sat still as he did it. Trusting. You earned it, Daniel said quietly. The dog leaned forward and pressed its nose against Daniel's chest. Warm. Certain. Life didn't change all at once. But it changed enough. Walks became routine. Mornings became lighter. Silence became company. Weeks passed. Daniel smiled more. Slept better. And every afternoon, they passed the park. Sometimes they stopped. Sometimes they didn't. But they always remembered. One evening, Daniel sat on the porch again, tea cooling in his hands. Hope lay at his feet. Waiting. But this time, not for something to end. For something to continue. Daniel looked down and smiled. You found me, he whispered. Hope's tail moved gently. The sun dipped low. And in that golden light, two lives, once paused, moved forward together. Quietly. Fully. Home.